decisions project energy. Why is that the case? How is that the case? And what is really the power of importance? Truly, what is it? I feel that the human being can move in various dimensions, just like we have freedom to move in. Excuse me. Just like how we have a freedom to move in sort of three-dimensional space, we can move in three-dimensional space. I can firmly say we can also move in subjective space and in our inner realms. And now that relationship with the inner realms is the opposite of the relationship of the outer realms. In front of your eyes, you are an object, and this object administers and kind of decides where the meaning of the inner realms go. Behind your eyes, you're not a physical phenomena in a physical place. You're kind of like an invisible phenomena in an invisible place. Now, I decided to choose this picture, and it's by, I believe, an artist named Wadim Kashin. And it's an incredible work of art because I often in my inner realms kind of fly through my visualizations of how the future would be. And I have wondered about cyberspace culture, but it was something that I was seeing something in this picture, and I was seeing something similar in my inner realms, in my amazements about the future, is that all human beings, their decision doesn't just set the action, it sets the quality of the action. So think of it this way, that everybody is an energy and there is endless chords or dimensions. And it's as if where your attention goes, the decision you make gives off a certain sound, gives off a certain echo, and then you're committed to your choice. That means the difference between unconscious evolution and conscious evolution. In unconscious evolution, there were no mistakes, there was no correctness, there was no right or wrong. But in conscious evolution, we could observe the effect of what we would set out in motion, what we would cause. Excuse me. Now, here comes the idea, guys. In whatever, imagine if we were born, like we're born now, we don't need to imagine now, but like imagine you were born 1,000 years in the future, or try to imagine how you would be alive if you were alive 1,000 years ago. You would see on some level, everybody is a moment of sight, and there is some sort of alchemy of decision making. And what does that mean? That means underneath all our ancestors' ideology, all their beliefs, all their names, all their values and truths, there is some sort of attention roaming in a landscape, identifying with the landscape, and therefore observing beyond it. So I feel like there is in the moment a known self, and there's also an unknown world. Now, the known self gives us the act or the opportunity of conscious living, which is to, in some sense, access a known world. So you're a sense of self that is known right now. It's like it's you're aware, it's real. So there's a known self and an unknown world. We don't know the edges of the world, but we know the edges of our face when we look in the mirror. Yeah. So I'm saying the known self has a choice to explore a known world. It has the choice to explore an unknown world, or it has a choice through either the unknown world or the known world to figure out if there's an unknown self. This unknown self has been the major fascination of most human beings. And any human being that appears in a simulation, or at any moment the human experience goes towards the non-linear, you come towards the unknown. The unknown literally means it's too dark to see. So when I say, for example, that there's a known self and there's an unknown self, I mean that you are existing intelligently in a way where you're not, imagine, fully aware of that intelligence. Imagine right now you're a great piano player and you don't know it. Maybe imagine right now you are a great singer and you don't know it. Decisions are important, and they become even more important when we're wondering about decisions being made in an unknown world, an unknown self. A known self, by definition, means that you can notice the boundary of your individuality. The known self, playfully, would be if you were a nation, you would be aware of your borders. The known world was if you were a world, you would be aware of how visible you are. But the unknown world and the unknown self, they are the opposite. They are the opposite. You see, look at nature. Everything comes in a strange dualistic way. You see there's man, there's woman. You see there's night, there's day. There is, in some sense, I mean, there's, I should have probably, there's various forces that come in pairs. Like you look at your hands, you have two hands, every finger you have two of. Do you see? So there's this dualist. You have two eyes that see the same, for example. So you see, there's this thing. There's this thing that of things coming into two. And so I was wondering, what is this? Everything I look at is dualistic except me. I'm thinking I'm this, a simple self of a me, the same me every day waking up. But really, in actuality, that's not the case. It's based on a sort of pattern re-evoking. I've had moments where I've just sat still and I've tried to really, in a core way, wonder about what is here, what is here. And you know what happens? I notice that as long as my eyes are open, my attention is instantly through the visible. The eyes, if they are open, they are like a laser beam. So your attention as a being goes to the visual senses. When you close your eyes, for example, before you want to sleep, or maybe some people in meditation, you'll notice that if you keep your eyes closed, and let's say you look at an object on a table, and then you keep your eyes closed right after you close your eyes, and you in some sense wonder about who is seeing what, then you will become acquainted to how you're being a field of being. You know, I have kind of spoken about a third a sort of third evolution that we may as species go to. One way I spoke about its manifestation is as the cyberspace evolution. Literally, we connect ourselves to our technology and we surpass the human nature. Or maybe we just step out of it. Doesn't mean even we surpassed it. Or there is, in some sense, the evolution towards the inconceivable. And as far as I'm concerned, there's various mystic traditions that speak about it, but only in Rumi's poetry. I came across this idea where this poet Jalaluddin Maulana Rumi, he says, I died as a mineral and I became a plant. I died as a plant and I rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was man. Why should I fear death? When was I less by dying? I shall die once more as man, to soar with angels blessed, but even from angelhood I must pass on, to that which no mind has ever conceived. This poem literally means, Rumi is saying by this whole poem, in other words, he's saying we're evolving towards the inconceivable as a transmigrating reflection of this only truth. So we are one truth that is experiencing itself within itself as multiple phenomena. I wondered, what is this? Why is there so much discussion on duality and non-duality? For example, most people don't realize, anyone who's been drawn to yoga and not just its physical components, its physical practices, anyone who's been drawn to yoga, you are in some sense going towards a school of thought that is taking you, that's Advaita, that literally yoga, the word means to join. And some people may say, join what? You know? And it's to join your, how would I say it? It's for you to realize the inseparability of your inner realms and outer realms, if I was to say it, but how back in the day they would say it, I would say it would be something like, the Atman recognizes it is the power of Brahman. So you either become less as a body or you become more as a mind on this earth. And strangely, I think both of it is occurring. I think we are a multidimensional being. I'm kind of getting the sense that all of history has been an attempt to hide this. Not all of history. I mean, various cultures throughout history have kind of seen gods, and even secular cultures fought for its secularism. But I'm saying that we are more mysterious than perhaps we can ever define or explain. And I feel decisions project energy because the decision is an attentment, the instantaneous acceptance. Any decision I've made, I just accepted whatever the moment was. On some level, here's the fascinating thing, guys. I feel literally we are like language. This is going to be by far, I think, one of the most interesting ways you may, as a person, hear someone explain the human being. You see, guys, what happens when we look at the word life and we separate the letters from each other? They just become meaningless letters on their own. They only the letters of LIFE together they make life. When they're separate, they don't make sense. And if we were to through a reductionist method, or through an atomos-like method, a method that's constantly trying to break things to understand it, I feel there's a certain level of outer exploration and inner exploration that literally before we get an answer to our question, we are dismantling the questioner. And that's the thing. I feel we don't become an advanced civilization. I think we have always been an advanced civilization and we just remember it. I think that the surface of the earth is not empty. I think the earth is living a life as all our minds. And I feel that if, in some sense, I mean, you can kind of fathom it. This is the most mysterious thing, and most people feel it may not be the case, but that in ancient mythology there were pointers to it. Out of curiosity, anyone that's listening, if I ask you, is this earth alive? Just like how you're alive. Not based on your organs or whatever, but just like how you're alive, is the earth alive? If the earth is alive, there could be a huge chance that all of us are being the earth's life right now. That was the implication of the concept of God. I mean, if you really think about it, it's kind of too surreal. It's like if you like, this is the idea where you are a person, and imagine you're alive in the 6th century and you feel there's a creator, there's a personality behind the whole universe. An unfathomable, inconceivable personality that has imbued you with some sort of eternity of eyes, you know? Now, I remember it was weird because I'm like, you telling me while I'm being a person, God is also being a person, the whole universe is being a person, and that was the mystery. That was the thing that I was, what it is? I think religion came too soon. No, alive is not physical only. Because you only know you're physical when you're conscious. So technically, when you're alive, P Turtle in the chat section, technically you can't know you're alive if you're not conscious. So if something is alive, there's a sort of or consciousness. No. I'm not saying like the Earth has a driver's license. I'm saying that I don't want a person. I don't like. See, that's what they did in the 6th century. They humanized it, and now people are shunning it. People are like, "Yo, you see a person to the universe? You know, you see a name to the universe? You kidding, bro?" And you look at the modern world, and you're like, the unknown's voice is louder. I do like the distinction though. So Peter on the chat section, I could say I remember this was a big moment when I noticed the distinction between consciousness and awareness. Awareness is there regardless of the condition or the container. Consciousness is to a form. So technically, I would say being alive means motion. It means animate motion. So it's like, imagine we were alive, but we could never move. Physically, we could never move. We were all lost, trapped in a painting. And I think it's very, you can kind of say, imagine God was an artist, and when we look at the universe, we don't see kind of a lot of sense to it, you know? So imagine if the concept of the creator was an artist, and this artist was improvising. Imagine some man found a voice with the voice of the universe, and he's like the voice of God, let us say. And I'm saying the story respectfully, but with depth. And the person's like, imagine, God, why did you create all this? You know, the person's kind of gone there, you know, even let's say the person's gone to heaven or something, you know, and he's like, God, why'd you make all this? And God looks at the person and he's like, hey, you know, it's just I felt like that day. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if people were like, why does the universe exist? Because the universe felt like it. Oh man, that's hilarious. It's like, you know, that's how our emotional reality is a huge justifier. I think it's a balance. I think the more multidimensional we are, the more our desires can be. I literally closed my eyes and I was like, I could desire anything. I could literally desire like another moon to the earth. You know what's funny? When you look at desires, they're usually an archetype trying to fulfill itself. That means I've kind of looked at some of my own desires. I mean, of course, desires change. Every environment has a different sort of voice in your mind. But I don't know, after some point, it wasn't about the value system. It wasn't about truth or the illusion. It was just like, there's something here, and how much do we understand it as a species? And I felt it's not enough. And I wondered, how do we catalyze, or not even a catalyst, how do we accelerate civilization towards this advancement? Honestly, at the core of my heart, all my talks are considering that context of exactly that question. And so I feel it's our decisions. That means the decisions is literally like, you would say the head of the snake, or it is, if you were a door-to-door salesman, it would be the person who makes the decision in the house of which donation to choose. If you work for Red Cross, I experienced that. You know. The more multidimensional life is, the more multidimensional your belief is, the more you gotta make sure those dimensions stay the same. I feel that what human beings fear is being in an unknown state for too long. You see, we are obsessed with knowledge. Sometimes there was a moment where I was thinking about like how much suffering that goes on in this world. Then I was thinking literally like the Buddha didn't know there was like, for example, a lot of people who were on earth, they didn't know how Earth looked from outer space. Like, we got to consider that, right? No, none of the people doing the religions, I mean, maybe they had a view, a certain narrative, but it was kind of like you didn't have the spherical view of the Earth, right? So when we have the spherical view of the Earth, I think automatically our metaphysics is pushed to a depth of confronting the void more than the normal, you know? I really like this artwork. And there's something, I was looking at it, and I feel it's going to be much more fast-paced than that. You see, human beings, we put cloth on our skin, okay? We put clothing on. So we're definitely going to put technology on ourselves. So this picture is accurate in that sense, right? Imagine the Pokemon ball in like 2,000 years from now is like the start of a religion or something. You guys, we gotta understand. It's not even the religious ideology says that the source of it is inconceivable. So I feel that it is there. The void is very, how would I say it? It's like from the void has emerged manifestation to question its own storyline, to see it as beyond its own story, and from the beginning till the end, there was just the journey of, there was just the presence of attention. I feel we are experiencing life in our static oceanic being as a drop of experience. I feel we are oceans, we're not people. So welcome everyone to the chat section. I'm just kind of going with the rhythm of the talk. If anybody wants me to engage with the chat section, just put MW in front of your comment, and my attention can just, out of the, you know, river of comments in the chat section, I can distinguish it. Yeah, so the cyber, this kind of sort of cyber, it's not just cyberpunk. You see every person's head. You see, like, just look at the person who is walking towards, like, the person who has boots on, you know? You see that guy in the picture? That person who has boots on in the picture, that person has fully encapsulated their face. You know what that means? That means this picture is drawn at a point where the air technology in the what do you call it, in the mask could be healthy. You know, literally, imagine the solution to what do you call it? The solution to polluted nations is these kind of clean air masks, but they're not masks. Imagine they're like just these glassware that goes on the head, face of the person. So I feel the important point is that emptiness doesn't have an image. And that's the intense thing. How we as a creature infused in image I mean, guys, just when you look at this, I was, oh yeah, I made a comment of this to speak about this. I just forgot to note it. Guys, there was something very huge I wanted to say about this whole thing about decisions projecting energy. And it has to do with the human being's relationship with information. The relationship with information is very strange because information, it can endlessly be generated because it is imposed into the environment. So what does that mean? That means we were first forms, then we became aware we are in forms, right? We are in a formation. That's the mind. That's the evolution. That's the subjective evolution's fruition. Now, it's the relationship with information. So just to bring the attention back to this picture, these people are accessing way more information than usual. And so that means we shouldn't fear information overload because in the future we can envision it at least that it's going to be very maximized, you know. Guys, I feel we shouldn't even live on the planet. For me, the human being awakens to the world, goes through a series of actions, and then goes back to sleep. Now, this awakening and sleep is pretty much life and death as far as the subjective entity is considered. So technically, we are experiencing nothing and everything. Literally, just like how our eyes blink, when we go to sleep, it's like our world is blinking, and we wake up. You know what it is, guys? There's this quote that Michelangelo has. He says, I saw the angel in the stone and set it free. Michelangelo, this dude was looking at a rock and he saw an angel in it. You know how creative, how like deep that is? That's like you looking at your wall and suddenly seeing an angel's face in it. You know what I mean? Like, and then starting to sculpt. Guys, check this out. Michelangelo said, I saw the angel and I set it free. Mr. Within will say, I saw an advanced civilization and I designed it. And what I mean by that, not I'm just one person. Civilization is not a one man person thing. But I'm saying that means I saw that as the slogan of the future generations. Every child entering the world, instantly intelligence activating, instantly serving the species towards the advancement of everything. You know, guys, incredible thing. If here, I'll ask. How would I say it? If so guys, in the chat section, I see people are talking about the technology of how to design anti-gravity. Like, for example, Jesse says anti-gravity cities. Let me tell you, I saw it as different options. I saw it as a sort of magnetic relationship. So in some sense, so P Turtle says, Mr. Within, consciousness is the underlying substance inside all form. Each fractal of consciousness is one of consciousness, is one consciousness, is of one consciousness. Everything has it, everything is it. Now, P Turtle, I'm going to ask you a counter question. If everything has it and everything is it, why is everything evolving? Isn't that an interesting question? Why, if we are all truth from the beginning, why does the illusion exist? So the illusion, the concept of an illusion was the wrong viewpoint from the beginning. The fact that we saw life as a truth and an illusion meant that we couldn't handle its dimensions infusing. Oh man, that's hilarious. So guys, Rage in the chat section says the particle accelerator is within, and I just for a second envisioned like future scientists are like, find the particle accelerator within. You know, imagine 400 years from now, scientists are like walking like enlightened beings upon this earth, having figured out the secrets of matter, you know. I think honestly, when I saw the archetype of the mage in lore, I saw the scientist. The scientist is the effort of the human dimension to control the elements. Isn't that fascinating? Scientists are mages. Literally, if this was a fantasy time, scientists would follow Gandalf, you know. Oh man. People are going to be like, Mr. Within, you bringing Gandalf into this? You know? You know, Saturn isn't the only Lord of the Rings, you know. Interesting. So I feel it's not that where knowing is not possible. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like I gave this metaphor. So guys, I'm responding to the chat section here. Peter says, so you have to create a place where knowing is not possible. Let me tell you how I've engaged that idea. I don't think that it's not that knowing is not possible. Your possibilities are only in your knowing. That means only when you know, when you're conscious, literally when you wake up. In deep sleep, you don't know anything, but but you know, when you wake up, you suddenly know. Do you know? So that's what I'm saying. That's the interesting thing, that it's kind of like an attributeless witness. I feel literally a glass orb is really our energetic, our conscious energy. Energy is conscious of itself as space before as matter. So whatever we feel our intelligence is ascribed to the matter, it will end up feeling like particles moving in the field of space. So I'm saying that from a macro view, we are a field of activity. From a micro view, we're a person on Earth. Perhaps these are views, of course. I find everything in life is a relationship of a field of awareness with the forms in it. There is an inseparability of mind and moment that really makes the witness kind of be. You can't find your real self. You can't find your higher self. They're not something to find. When you go towards your being in mysticism, you're not going towards an activity. Literally, you're wondering about life before you were an individual. That's mysticism, you know. I would say sciences are when you wonder about your life after you're born. So what that means is the nature of life. I sometimes have had an energetic relation. There was a time I was sitting in nature and I literally felt my body I literally felt like I was sight in the forest. My body was like literally part of the forest. There was that sort of stillness. Literally, I had no opinion on my body, and there was a moment there where my mind, whatever I was aware of, my senses kind of like a candle in a dark room, kind of whatever my sensory perception was receiving, it was for a second, in the stillness of my body, I became aware that I was being the presence of my whole moment. And that's where the true unknown, that was where I would say my inner realms elevated towards the unknown. And there are certain challenges. You see, it's where your attention goes. You see, all these people in this picture, they all have a sense of what is right, what is wrong, what they want, how human they should be, how robotic they should be. Maybe this person, these people we see right now, maybe these people are like the Amish. Maybe these people are like the Amish compared to people in this society who've become robots. You know what I mean? Maybe right now it's like, maybe in the future, if you're still human, it's not cool. Maybe everybody becomes robots. Who knows? And when I say everybody becomes robots, not that there's some outer kind of plot for this to happen, because people are gonna be like, yo, I want a stronger hand, and they're gonna get a robotic hand. And they're gonna be like, yo, I want a stronger leg. They're gonna get strong. They're gonna get robotic legs, you know. And then after some point, they're gonna be like, all right, let's just be a robot, you know. So we're gonna end up being robots that act human, and that's gonna be the saddest thing, you know. That would be the strange wreckage. Right now, multidimensionality is everywhere. And look at how we function in this world. We function as individuals. We function as singular units. So technically, if you saw 8 billion human beings from the sky, you'd kind of see the top of their heads. You'd see these dots moving, you know, let's say. These tiny dots moving, once you zoom in, they're a world on their own. What that means is, it's like, I want you to, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, draw like 5 circles, but like draw a bullseye, you know, with 5 circles, 5 concentric circles, you know. Now I want you to look at those circles and just for a second consider that 2-dimensional space to be 3-dimensional. Or here, I'll make it easier. Draw a dot and draw a radius. Literally draw a line from the center of the circle to the thing and draw the arrow at the center. What I mean by that, it's 3-dimensional. Literally, what appears 2-dimensionally as expansion in 3-dimensional reality is not expansion. So I don't know how science is going to consider this, but it has to consider what I would call interdimensional shift. The shift between dimensions leaves an impression, and it's the shift of the translation of the dimensions. It's like talking about passion to a robot. The robot can listen, hear, acknowledge, but it doesn't. It's not made for it. You know, it's made for repetitive action. I feel just like the person eats new food, the mind requires new sight, new vision, and efficiency would be to kind of discover a control of your dynamic self, if I could say. I feel it's not that you can, so P. Turtle says you cannot experience when you know all. I'll say it's not that you cannot experience when you know all. It's like you are the experience when you know all. You're all. There's no all. The concept of all is there for an individual. The concept of heaven is there until you're in heaven. So you got to kind of consider it that every position is a different site of part of the mountain. You know, the mountain is this ancient metaphor. I have lived through many stories. Experience is conditional in front of your eyes. Behind your eyes, it's unconditional. That's why I at least, guys, feel I walk in the halls of a school of thought where the soul is not is not a shape; it is the mover of it. It is then as if the mind was never born, but the body had to be. I would say you can't experience nothing as a thought, but the experiencer is technically nothing to what it observes. So, guys, Ivan says, can you experience nothing? I mean, physically, actually, no. Physically, you always experience, but internally, the observer of the object, is it the object? Is the observer of the subject? You know? So guys, Lisbeth in the chat section says, good analogy, passionate robot, language shifts in quality when integrating a new paradigm. I was tongue-tied for a while. Easiest way to come away the shift is being the shift. Yeah. Being the shift. That is the last three words are the most important words that our species needs to consider. The children of the future generations have to look at those three words of your comment, Elizabeth, in the chat section. Guys, you know what's interesting? We all have a lot of ideas on nothing. Guys, let's start a school of nothing. The school of nothing studies, you know, we study nothing. I'm joking. Would that be funny, you know? Like, college humor needs to get on that, you know? But that being the shift, guys, let me tell you something important. We have to look at a sort of evolutionary position. Just like, I think it was yesterday, I kind of accurately came up with a way of explaining it. Kind of four phases of evolution. There was an unconscious world. Then there emerged an unconscious self. Then there emerged a conscious world. Then there emerged a conscious self. And it's going to loop. And so after the conscious self, it again comes to an unconscious world. That's it. That means after you become fully conscious as an individual in a system, you will automatically move to an unconscious world. So it's not just human beings being reborn. World cycles are also being reborn. The world is also incarnating. Who knew the world also, you know, had karma? Who knew the cosmos had karma, guys? Oh man. So guys, those four kind of modes, unconscious world, that was when there was no sense of self. Then there came the objective evolution, you know. So first was no evolution, let us consider. Then there was objective evolution. The objective evolution was the emergence of the design of limbs and a body. Then the child, when the child, human being child, when a child is born, like, like this was the thing. Like, for example, a dictator couldn't go to an infant and was like, join my, force of terror. And the infant just looks at the dictator like, I'm a baby, what are you saying? So imagine like a newborn baby doesn't have, I'm just trying to make the point, a newborn baby doesn't have human sight, doesn't have individual consciousness yet. It has awareness. It's consciousness as it's conscious, but as a moment that's being the world. So before you learn language, you as a human being are actually being a conscious moment of the world. So the objective evolution, it led to the subjective evolution. The subjective evolution is that consciousness. The subjective evolution is when we realize we are in a formation and we became information to ourselves. We became an identity. That's the subjective evolution. Then, this is where we're going to next. Okay? We are going towards the conscious self. We're going to experience the conscious self. We're at that time. And this conscious self phase, it's going to be very intense. It's not going to be very intense. Literally, we're at the fourth, like literally, there's the seasons. Imagine there's cosmic seasons. Let's call this cosmic season theory. Let's add some seasoning to the poetry. Cosmic season theory. Sure, why not? So I'm saying right now we are becoming pure information, and pure information is pure energy. So we're energy. Imagine you're pure energy. Then you become you become imagine you're pure space. Okay. Then you become what do I say? Okay. The world is born, the self is born. When the self is born, a world internally is born. In that internal world, the self is born, and if you retain consciousness, endless simulations, endless psychological simulations can arise in the moment. And when I say psychological simulations, the word psychology, we're gonna reach a point where we're gonna stop calling it psyche. We're not like, because it's kind of weird. It's kind of like it's ironic. The word psyche comes from the word soul or spirit, and Guys, we're not thoughts. You're only dualistic because how can I tell you? You oscillate between conscious and unconscious. This is one of the grand questions. Who will you be if you're no longer a person? How will your experience of your presence be? How will the world be communicated to you? Will you move as the world? Think about it. We separated from the world. Now we evolved a little bit. And now, what if we're returning back to the world? What if it's going to become a point in a sort of new age of the highest skill, the most advanced skill? Every day you turn on the news and it's endless, endless advancements of your civilization. We built such an advanced civilization, imagine, that even though the most vicious people are like, what am I doing? Being violent in the streets, let me run towards the advanced civilization. I had this vision. In this vision, it was this important event that was happening, and there was these warriors from all around, and it was during the sort of kind of the inner realm vision was like a fantasy kind of atmosphere. There's a lot of my, I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't know. There's a lot of times in my thinking, things appear as a battlefield. I don't know why. But anyways, there's pretty much there's this event happening, and from around the world, those who have noticed this are running towards it with different abilities. That's the thing. An advanced civilization is going to be the most advanced, most important event in history. It's going to be when the species became conscious of its potential. How incredible would that be to watch? We human beings start doing something that beings from all around the universe, even if they have been hiding, they start peeking from the clouds. What are the human beings doing? And we see humanity is advancing, next level strategies. I feel that the world is our leader. And I feel the world, in some sense, is directly communicating to those who are living in it. You cannot be in an environment and not have the environment communicate to you. You know, I have this kind of notion that I called it the on and off switch effect, and literally how we have been literally the Earth has been getting a tan, and our experience on the surface of this earth has pretty much been lights on, lights off, lights on, lights off, lights on, lights off. Now look at our biology. We inhale, we exhale. The heart, what is it, contracts, and then the opposite. Our morality is good and bad. A lot of language is a binary system because they're either you need self and world. You can't, it becomes very difficult to speak without a context or a concept. You need those two major things in stability, and then it becomes easy to speak with one of those levels changing. So either you can zoom in or zoom out of whatever view you're looking at, or whatever you look at, really. The attention is, it has multi-ability. It's multi-able. And I wonder how is it that our imaginations are living in the future, but we are not. And it's like seeing the three noble spirits of life, seeing the spirit of the past, seeing Shiva, seeing the spirit of the now, seeing Vishnu. seeing the spirit of the future, seeing Brahman. Our minds are their own poetry, and while we live in objective life, there are subjective worlds that the attention flies through attributelessly. When you become conscious of that, I don't know. I don't know how many people have similar experiences as me. But I feel that right now, society, we exist in it through an astronaut suit of this. Like, think about a civilization, how advanced the minds of people will be if they didn't have to spend their whole life trying to mine, like just like how back in the day people were in the coal mines, you know, and we look back and we're like, holy shit, people were like living in terrible conditions and they had no choice, and it would, you know, it was tragic. And right now, believe it or not, the way we are living in our civilization and society is going to appear to the future generations like the coal mines, because we're spending all the lifetime we have to imagine your life if you had resources, and imagine your life without resources. And you may say the simple is better, but I'm telling you, it's like on an island, it's good to have resources. When you're stranded on an island in the cosmos, it's good to try to see whatever resources that are at your disposal, but also keep the character aligned with the intention. Because it's not, here's the thing, I thought it was all about just chasing the future. Let me tell you what it is. It's not about chasing the future, it's acknowledging the living presence of the moment and listening to what the world wants while you simultaneously want something. You see, the world is here before us. We forget this and we think we're the owners of our meaning. But when you reach that kind of unknown state of the witness, then you don't have a desire and you hear the voice of, you know, the hidden earth. So anyways, guys, let me see what else I can say. Let's see what other geometrical shapes I can find in the conception of this talk. Power of the important. Yeah. I don't know. It's like in life, we travel through various environments, and that obviously means our value system changes. Now, imagine you're not just walking, imagine all these people you see in this picture, they're not just walking in this world, they're also walking in some cyberspace adaptation, like everybody is seeing whatever's outside in a more advanced way. So it's kind of hilarious in a goggle civilization to invest money in making the streets look cool when everybody's wearing goggles, you know? It's just that your mind, your inner life and your outer life, when they are no longer resisting one another, there comes this kind of that witnessing void, and then automatically your nature knows. So right now we're in front of our eyes, there's a sort of conditional life. And what does that mean? That means meaning can be attained to certain conditions. If we don't respect the biological program, the elemental world would be like, you didn't hold on to me, man. And we exit early. But I feel it's all about kind of using, it's like a general in a battlefield and wondering, what do we do with fear? And the general's like, all right, we need to use it to our advantage. And somebody's going to be like, how do we use fear to our advantage? We wonder about the ultimate fear if we're experiencing fear. And once you, in some sense, tackle the ultimate fear, you become fearless to your inferior dimensions. You become fearless in your subconscious. How can I say it? It's all about us trying to wonder, how do we translate Okay, guys, sorry about that. I had to handle something. Okay. I feel we are drawing paintings, then experiencing them, and then getting inspired to draw new paintings, and then experiencing them, and it's this constant self-generation of value system, born out of value system, born out of value system, as if life is being born out of its own genetical line. So on some level, it's kind of strange that when we look at our line, our lineage, it goes to eventually being something that I kind of think about it. It's as if my experience of people around me is they are all distant to me. Everybody, I don't have anybody's eyes. I have my own eyes, right? And nobody has anybody's eyes. Everybody has their own eyes. But the thing is, what separates a family member from someone that is not a family member? What separates one human being from another human being? And it is your acceptance of nature, of their nature. Guys, I say that we are pilots, but we're not pilots navigating airplanes. I wish, you know. We are attention piloting meaning in phenomena. I feel we have to inject or somehow upload into our civilization a renaissance for all members of the species to become hunter-gatherers of their inner realms and the lives we live behind our eyes to fearlessly emerge and live in actual reality. You see, there is something about the liar that was as if, like, I found this to be the difference between the ninja and the samurai. The ninja was open to deception. The samurai stood to its honor. Now, the ninja would see the samurai. If the samurai was vulnerable, the ninja didn't have a care. Didn't care. He wanted to just defeat the opponent. The samurai cared for how he conducted the moment. So guys, just to give a quick comment in the chat section, the distinction between, I mean, every person, we gotta realize that what is language? Like, literally go think about where language came from. It was human beings who started making noises, you know. That means really language evolved because, human beings didn't shut up. I feel we, you're more than a character in a story. You're more than duality. Duality is the father of infinity, and the singular is the mother of duality. And the void is just chilling. Yeah, the void is the cool cat. You know, disembodied conscious beings are just like, yo, I'm space right now. Language is a development. It is an advanced tool. It is a technology. We are not language. We're not our beliefs. I'm not a bunch of letters right now. My life can't be written into a book, simply because the dimensions of life surpass dualism. There's many moments in life where yourself is not a shape. In deep sleep, it's not a shape. You see? In a certain conscious waking state, it cannot be a shape, but there's always this pre-backed context of intelligence. So what it is that when man's intelligence fails, the world's intelligence rises. And so sometimes I think it is good to sometimes just touch a tree, or just touch the ground or the earth, or whatever. Just find one moment throughout the day where you quickly touch the earth, and you just acknowledge it's here. Certain linguistic professors, Steven Pinker being one of them, he says that there was meaning before there was language. What does that mean? That means a creature saw another creature. There was love. Love is an ancient language. And those who, in some sense, truly have a nature that cares to see the future continue, your inner stream status becomes excellent. When you free yourself as an attention, that could never be a thought. Thoughts come and go. I mean, think about it. 10 years ago, were you the same person? There's no, it's not set in stone. Where our minds are like rivers. They're rivers that are connected to the cosmos. I remember once I was sitting on this chair, and literally I saw my brain, and poetically in my inner realms I saw branches stemming from my brain just rooting into the unfathomable conception. And I felt for a second we are all rooted in the inconceivable, but we are fruitful in conception. So I feel the roots of the human being surpass the human being's understanding of its roots. We cannot see beneath the soil. After a certain point, the word breaks into letters, the letters meet the void, the emptiness of the page roars, and then the new is welcomed. So anyways, guys, be conscious of your decisions. What I think something healthy that people can do is just grab a piece of paper or something and just out of curiosity write for yourself and answer honestly. Just when you're alone with yourself, it's okay to be honest. Like, you know, if people understand that honesty is always there, dishonesty is what's added. So if you technically do nothing and you come to the simplest moment of your way your mind is, you find that sort of honest nature. I feel the mind sings, and I think its songs are geometric. I feel we're reaching the most interesting moment in history where we're evolving beyond the subject and we have to find a way to kind of collectively integrate this new paradigm. The wind blows the leaves move not knowing what blows them, what moves them. A lot of phenomena in this world moves without knowing why. So it's as if movement is not an answer to a purpose. So when people say, what is my life purpose? It can't be per se just an event or an image or a picture. I think what it is to wonder about uh, the origin of the existential position. Like literally, it's like somebody says, "Where do you come? Where do you come from?" And imagine you say, "Okay, I was born in Iran," and then somebody's like, "No, where do you come from?" And you're like, "What do you mean?" And the person's like, "Where does the idea of you come from?" And then you're like, "Yo, man, calm down." And the person's like, "Where does the idea of calming down come from?" And eventually, you're kind of getting acquainted with the self-reflective nature of mind, that it takes an effort to actually see the world without being something in it. That's the mindfulness of Zen, you know. We're not thought guys, so P. Turtle, I would disagree with you. I don't think we're not thoughts. What were you before the concept of a thought? There you go. We're not thoughts, we're experience. We're a dynamic, intelligent, animate experience. Like, think about it. We're not like just objects on a shelf. We're active, living creatures. So, guys, I'm gonna end the talk here, but I'm gonna open it up to Q&A. Feel free to ask any question if you like. It's gonna be for 10 minutes. So, Q&A is open. Anybody has a question, ask, and I'll enter cyberspace. Much blessings. And thanks for listening. So. So, so guys, Rod Smith asked a question: what is a fact? It's a term we use to acknowledge the actual from the apparent. So the fact is how something is rather than how it appears to be. And if you feel you're an objective being, your facts are objective oriented. You need to see to be allowed sight. So your imagination is left to the imagination of what other people bring into the world. You know? But if you reach a point where you become fearless and then wonder about your ultimate future and then wonder if you were already there, what it would feel like, you would find yourself in a strange ambiance where you kind of will notice. I mean, I've spoken about the language threshold, which is a term I've created to suggest that beyond language we can experience, but there's no words for it, or we have to create a language for it. There's also this idea this term, I use it in this sense. I call it the novelty threshold, and that is how the unknown moves. Usually, people through mysticism become aware of the static unknown, but only when you can endure through the static unknown and you're intuitively welcomed. You'll know intuitively when you are. Then I don't know, you don't have like that addiction to the next world mentality anymore. You stop chasing dimensions and you try to see how things are. So I would say a fact is, in some sense, what, regardless of how we perceive it, is actually there. Now the thing is, because we don't know the nature of how to relate the psychology to the matter, because if I tell you right now, for example, your name is Rod, who asked the question, what is a fact? So if I tell you Rod, this sense of self, this idea of Rod, where is it? You would see it's internal. So the meaning of the external is internal. But the internal requires the external to be the internal, or to be aware as the internal. Either the self is multidimensional, the world isn't. Either the self is not multidimensional, the world is multidimensional. Either neither the self is multidimensional, or neither the world is multidimensional, or the self is multidimensional and the world is multidimensional. Then it would literally mean inconceivable, inconceivable, inconceivable. Literally, like university professors would be like, what do you want us to say? The speed of that dimension would most likely be a change that we can't correlate, we can't pinpoint, we can't refer to the movement. It's kind of like human beings realizing they are a tool, using a tool to discover something. And just like how they see a tool in your hand could have limitations, we're looking at the human, apparatus, biology, and we're like, okay, this has limits, but what is the point of these limits? So that would be my answer, Rod. That fact is how something is, how it's how it's how something is, regardless of how it's seen. It's there. It's real. Like the word reality means that if I see this table and I come back to this location and I see this table, I see it's real. Guys, in life, the pilot needs to be able to elevate, needs to pilot through various elevations. And it's all about seeing the known variables and the unknown variables and eventually choosing and seeing where the importance of the moment is. There's been some times in my life where it wasn't even my intuition that protected me. It was literally my own intelligence to just ask a question. I just wondered. The power of wonder is legendary. I can tell you that I feel the most blessed people on this earth. They have a sort of wonder throughout the day pulling them. That wonder, that rhythm, that is the advanced civilization. It is a rhythmic allegiance with how great the world can be because we can only attempt to see what it would be, what it would look like while we're alive. Like, when else can you experience anything? I remember I was in Milan, Italy, and I was walking in Milan Cathedral, and I took a picture. I don't have a picture here, but like, I was going in the cathedral, and there was this construction happening, and it was such a divine moment for me because it was like literally there was this machinery in this kind of ancient cathedral, and the machinery was trying to was I don't know, they were polishing some wood or something, they were like fixing some part of the cathedral, but it was like it was for the first time I saw machinery in a church, and my mind wondered about robots going to church, you know. And I wondered about how, in some sense, it was this idea of the infusion of technology with the supernatural. It's as if, like, the extrasensory perception of a robot would be like human sensory perception, but the extrasensory perception of the human being would at least suggest that we can at least be learn something if we see that. It's like, I don't know how to say. So yeah, guys. Anyways, if there's more questions, let me know. Um, Actually, it's been more than 10 minutes, but so I don't know if there's questions. Keep them coming, guys. I think in a few minutes I'll end the talk. I mean, yeah, blessings. So, guys, Rod asks, how do you explain the unexplainable? Interesting question. I feel it doesn't have a rational answer because the question is kind of void because the unexplainable can't be given an image. But I would say how you explain the unknown, or in my experience, is that you don't explain it, you just abide by your nature, and the trust and the synchronization of your inner realms and outer realms, they're externally externalized, they're piloted externally together. So for me, if somebody was like, Mr. Within, what are you doing when you give these talks? I'm trusting. That's it. That's the simplest dimension to these talks that I give or whatever I do. I perceive something, the inner realms respond to the sensory perception by giving it potentials and extensions and deviations. I created a term, I called it reality extensions. Parallel realities, they're extensions of a reality. So I would say it's when the unknown moves. So the best thing I could tell you, Rod, is how do you explain the unexplainable? You don't chase the butterfly, you let it land. You sit among the flowers, you sit like a lotus and the butterfly lands on your forehead. That's the way. That's the way I'm suggesting. Maybe there's various schools of thought. There is another way where after you've experienced that, I say then you become there's two crossroads. Then I suggest a different path, and traditional mysticism suggests another path. Traditional mysticism says, let's get out of here. Life's a dream. You know, Mr. Within is saying there can't be a dream. Why? Because the dream requires something true to be there to experience it. That means, think about it. If you want to experience truth, that means you have to be true to be able to experience that truth. So when you are not true to yourself, you don't get to experience your own truth. Your inner realms, you don't get to experience your own inner realms. Most likely you're trying to move through another ideological Iron Man suit or something. So that's how I would say it. You gotta trust your intelligence. You're a human being. Your eyes have seen something thus far. Trust your moment. Look at your moment and the importance, the spirit of importance in the moment. How your attention moves towards the important, and then you'll just, after some point, just trust the simplest version of yourself, and that's kind of like sitting on the lotus part. And when the butterfly lands on your forehead afterwards, I'm saying trust the most complex version. That means don't measure yourself because it's a river and there's no point of measuring how many teaspoons a river is. Can you imagine? That's exactly like trying to find a formula for the whole cosmos, for the explanation of the natural events of the whole cosmos. That's like trying to measure in teaspoons the whole cosmos. Yeah? Sorry, the measure in teaspoons the whole river. Yeah. Guys, I'm going to say this comment, P Turtle, I was reading it. I feel it's not that you, like, let's consider your statement is true, but let's just see a depth to it in the sense that the unknown, the unexplainable explains itself. Technically, how you explain how you exist is unexplainable. There's too much unknown here, guys. You know? Yeah, but the number one doesn't exist to oneness. So if you think there is one consciousness, you technically still subconsciously are dualistic. So that oneness is inconceivable as long as you are navigating as the body. And that's why I'm saying this world is not designed for us to just go and feel like oneness in it. You know, this world is designed internally to feel that oneness so that we can speak a common human language. Sometimes it's kind of strange, you know, just like how there's seeds planted and trees grow. Sometimes I wonder if events in history have been planted and they're just growing. You know, certain bursts of energy from the surface of the earth that, you know, we can't see, but they're, I don't know, that's kind of strange. I don't know how many people in this on this planet have thought that an event can be like a seed, as if it's planted before. So that's the strange thing that to see a universe filled with cause and effect probabilities on some level, of course we have to. The body has to survive, but what the mind is, it's unknown, and we're all casually living our lives, not wondering what our mind is. You know, like this is for me astonishing. There's like an inner mystery and an outer mystery. Where's the edge of the universe? You know, where's the edge of the sky? That's the outer mystery. The inner mystery is where's the edge of the self? Where's the edge of my identity? Because as long as you can experience, you can re-identify, right? So identity is just for the moment's sake a shape provided. Who we are in our silence is just this dynamism of a changing being. That means you're not who you are again 20 years ago, imagine. So being human, interestingly, I've actually listened to Yuji Krishnamurti. He's the other Krishnamurti. You know, he's pretty much the Krishnamurti with the red lightsaber, and Jiddu Krishnamurti is the the one with the blue lightsaber. So, being human, guys, in the chat section shares a quote: "Our constant utilization of thought to give continuity to our separate self is you. There's nothing there inside you other than that, Yuji." This other than that is the same neti neti of the Upanishads. But it's the preference of the being. Some beings, like their eyes have to open dramatically, or their eyes open dramatically. So when they look at, they have a deeper depth. It's the intensity that your eyes open. So I would say, yeah, after some point, we reach a point where it's the language threshold, and if we can't acknowledge intelligence rooted in silence at that point, we're going to just annoy ourselves through debate, not debate, through just conflict of universal origin, you know. So that would be my comment, guys. So, Peter, I agree when you say this one consciousness is fractalized infinitely, infinite complexity of one. Your soul is one of infinite fractals of one. So I would say, and being human says, when the mind functions without thought, but rather the soul or whole runs the show, then one knows that the mind knows nothing, and what is everything. So, guys, these are all true, but remember, there's work. We gotta go to work tomorrow. Regardless how much the consciousness is being everything at the same time, and if man is in God's eyes or God is in man's eyes, you know, like regardless of it, there's an objective dimension that must be maintained, and once you're comfortable with that, that's the kind of mysticism I'm suggesting. So if you fear the objective realms, you shouldn't really go into your inner realms, because the objective realms pattern can echo or amplify. So only move when you can trust enough to see to see it, see the ability, when you know you have the ability to move, you know. So anyways, guys, I guess I'll end it here. Thanks for tuning in. It seems like the chat section is I think it's like a mountain of mystics or something. So, anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings and namaste. And be conscious of your decision. That's a 4 billion-year-old evolutionary opportunity. To be aware of how we move. To observe and then act. And then realizing the observer, whether we observe or act, is the whole moment. Yeah. Decisions project energy. I mean, literally, if you decide to eat like food, you're technically, you know. But I think decisions project energy. Maybe I shared it in the sense that if you decide right now, you have endless energy. Maybe you might experience life at complete energy. Maybe. So, anyways, guys, blessings.